All right. Good morning, our presenters and participants. Welcome to the virtual TESOL International Convention 2021. And on behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank you so much for your participation, as well as your contribution to our annual convention success. We are Zhong Wing and Deng Lei. As the presentation's moderators, we are delighted to see all of you in light of virtual presence today, especially in our workshop titled Teaching in the New Normal, Using Free, Low-Tech, No-Tech Apps for Online Language Learning. We do hope that all of you will be able to have some valuable knowledge and experience as takeaways following the talk. And before the presentation, there are a few considerations. In case you have any questions or concerns about the presentation, please feel free to leave them in the chat box so that we can gather the question for easy response in the 5 to 10 minute Q&A section later.
Now we got to welcome is Carla Bailey, the 2021 to 2022 U.S. Department of State's English Language Fellow. Carla is currently teaching 6 online courses at Union University in Bingding Province. Carla is a veteran TESL instructor who has been teaching in Cleveland, Ohio for almost 10 years. She possesses 2 master's degrees, her first in education, TESOL, curriculum and instruction, and her second master in psychology, university management, both from Cleveland State University. Carla also teaches K-12 ESL to aspirant school students during the day, and then work with immigrant and refugee students at community college in the evening. She has also taught ESP for medical students and business professionals as the community college. In addition to classroom ESL instruction, Carla is a strong proponent of international exchange. He has hosted numerous high school foreign exchange students, and both of her who own children have studied abroad. Please welcome Carla Bailey.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great. So today I'm going to give you some tips on some of my favorite online low-tech apps, websites, and activities that you can use with your students or pass on to other teachers. So I would recommend that you have something to write with, to write down some of the apps, and especially the ones that I tell you that are my favorite that you should really try. Now, these are all tested. I use them myself and have been using them for a while, even before the pandemic. So just make sure you have something to write with, to write them down, because I won't be able to put them in the chat, all of them, while I'm presenting. So here we go. So let me share my screen. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So today, as I said, we're going to talk about the new normal, free, low-tech, no-tech apps for our language learning. And I'm going to give you a few definitions. These are my definitions. When I talk about low-tech, that means students either have a cell phone, low data, or unstable Wi-Fi. If I talk about no tech, that means they don't have a phone, a laptop, no internet or electricity. And normally when I put no tech is because I had a project in the Philippines and there was a typhoon and students had no electricity, which meant they had no internet, which meant they could not use their technology. So I have a couple solutions for that also. And free, most of what I'm going to show you today will be free, but they also have paid or what they call pro accounts, where you might be limited in the number of students that you can serve. However, you should be able to get the pro account. It's not too expensive, but I use the free account as much as I can. So keep that in mind as I'm speaking, that everything that I'm speaking about has a free portion to it. So today's teachers, as you all know, tech savvy teachers are becoming the norm. And even before COVID, I was teaching a little bit more and more online. So today's teachers are expected to keep up with the technology. And sometimes it puts a little bit of pressure on teachers to try to find ways to engage their students with this new online technology. And I will have a question that I want you all to ask yourself. Is teaching face-to-face in the classroom and teaching virtually online the same? And they are not the same. There are some similarities, but for the most part, when you teach virtually, it's at a slower pace. Students have to unmute themselves. Sometimes their internet is lagging. And so if I was in a class and said, you can speak, it takes a second, but sometimes it might take 3 or 4 or 5 seconds when you're online. It takes longer for teachers to prepare their lessons and activities. And it also requires classroom management. Are students paying attention? Are students engaged? Teachers need to be more organized and creative at the same time. And it requires a little bit more flexibility and patience. Teachers are required to learn new platforms and new ways of teaching, and you have to reach all the students and require the same level of excellence that you would have in any high quality teaching situation. So this is just an example of you have to be engaged with your students. And although many students today are very comfortable with technology, they still may need help with certain apps and the same thing. They need a teacher to rely on. But it also puts pressure on teachers to become the experts in digital technology, where that wasn't necessary when you're in a face-to-face. And this can also be very challenging when your students are low tech or no tech, or students that maybe have lived in rural areas and this is their first time that they really have been online to learn, and maybe teachers also to teach. So hopefully today I'm going to give you so many examples of how to keep your student engaged, and even some examples from my own personal teaching experience here in the USA. So the main thing is, make sure that you connect with your students. And you may say, how? Zoom, Google Meet, even WhatsApp. I've used WhatsApp, as I said before, when my students have had no electricity, or the electricity was on, but they didn't have the internet, and they gave me their assignment through WhatsApp, or whatever your technology is in your country. Discussion clubs, one-on-one discussions, get to know you activities, and sometimes an old-fashioned phone call. If a student is in dire straits and they just need to get their work or need to be told their assignment, whatever it takes sometimes during these trying times. Also, use of Google Classroom. I use Google Classroom. They have a lot of platforms out today, Schoology, WebEx. They have many of them. I prefer Google Classroom. You can also write blog posts. You can write a newsletter to keep your students abreast. There's many things that you can do as opposed to, the old pencil and paper that you would do face-to-face. Now you would have to do it online on Google Docs where they all can share, Canvas. There's many platforms that you can use. I prefer Google Classroom. But there still will be challenges. Our job as educators is to think about ways to overcome these challenges. And it doesn't matter if you're in primary, middle, high school, or university. If you're teaching these students, there's still going to be all types of challenges. And most challenges come when the teachers have not modified their teaching style. So although you're teaching online, you're still teaching the same way that you would face-to-face. And sometimes that becomes just rote and the students aren't engaged because they're staring at a screen all day. And you have to decide how you as a teacher can also be creative in teaching your students. And what I'm finding when I teach abroad or when I have a project with a student, that many times students are very much lacking critical thinking skills for virtual learning and in person. And we're going to talk about that a little bit also. So it doesn't matter if you're teaching face-to-face or online, this should never be how your classroom looks. Never, ever, ever. Your students should always be engaged. And I'm not saying that you have to be the entertainment queen, but engagement and activities where they can think and they know that they're learning something engaging, they will not be bored like this. Trust me. And there are also benefits of low-tech teaching. Teachers can introduce more hands-on materials. Students can get to talk with their peers. And the activities just stimulate a student's brain in different than teacher talking in front of the class, writing on the board, students taking notes, students go home to study. It's just a whole different way of learning. And it can be fun if teachers know how to do it well and what technology to use to help them teach their students. But where does a teacher begin? Where do you start? And we've all got thrown into online education, online technology based on this pandemic. But I think, at least here in the USA, some students really thrived, and I don't think it's 100% going to go away anytime soon. So I do my best to try to learn as much as I can, even though I was doing a little bit of it before the pandemic. So I'm going to share what I know and what I've learned over the years with you all. First, let's start here. Low tech. Get your students speaking, engaged, and thinking critically. It's not as hard as you think. It's free most of the time, and it can be fun for the student if you are creative in coming up with assignments. And I'm going to give you a few examples. Impromptu speeches. This means speeches that aren't planned, they're not organized or rehearsed. People call them different names. Sometimes in America, we call it show and tell. But students, if the topic is interesting enough, they're going to love to speak about it and to talk about it. And I think students that are learning languages should get plenty of time to organize their thoughts quickly and to practice speaking. I don't know if students really do get enough practice speaking the language that they're learning. Monologically speeches. That's where one person is speaking and everyone else is listening. Everyone else is, maybe you can have the students also as their peer mediators. Maybe you have a rubrics to help them know, is the person pronunciating correctly? All types of things that you can do with monological speaking. You can have an interactive question and answer session for whatever the person's topic is, and you can have an interview style. All these cost nothing, and it helps the student practice their language. The assessment can be done by either the students or the teacher, and I'm going to give you a great website that you can find assessments that are only for speaking and topics and debate. So why monologic talks? It gives your student a chance to think critically. It's practice for real world conversation. It helps improve their fluency when they're speaking. And it motivates the students to speak English with confidence. And here's just a few ideas I just threw out here. My biggest concern for the future is, it could be your topic. You can pull topics out of a bucket. The student can take turn pulling topics out of a bucket. And these are just a few critical thinking ideas. What's on your bucket list? Is climate change real? It doesn't have to be anything over the top, just something that students may be interested in speaking about. Students, you can give your students 1 to 3 minutes for their speech. They can do it on their smartphone. They can deliver it and send it to Google Classroom. And if Google Classroom is not working, they can send it to WhatsApp. They can send it to your email. There's all types of ways, low-tech ways that you can be able to listen to your students' speech. Announce the topic near the end of your English class. Students must use their phones and do the speech before they leave class. So you can give a topic about anything, especially if something's relevant to your classroom, to your town, to your government. Give them a topic to talk about, give them 2-3 minutes, have them do it on their phones before they leave class. And if they did that enough, they will build their confidence in speaking. And it helps students avoid writing out their speech and reading it, because reading the speech and speaking impromptu is 2 different things. So I'm going to give you 4 great ideas for impromptu speaking or speech activities. Number 1, quick reply. Students can practice in pairs. You can put them in breakout room on Zoom or in Google Meets. Students can talk to each other, ask each other questions, as long as they're speaking, low tech. You can do what we call show and tell here in the USA. Someone brings an item, shows it on your screen. What is it? It explains, this is a photo, this is some jewelry, and they can just have something from their life and they can talk about it for 2 minutes, and everyone takes a turn, or you do, a few students every day. Also, you can plan a party. Tell your students the parameters. You're having a party. Their job is to create the menu. They need an appetizer, entree, a dessert, maybe some soup, or whatever you eat in your culture at a party. How do you make it? How do you create it? Where do you buy it? How do you cook it? What is the recipe? All this, it can be group work, it can be individual work. You can separate it by categories, and people can talk about their favorite recipe, a family recipe. So this is just another way to get students speaking, talking, and it might be fun for them, depending on their age. Also, I do this a lot. I have role-playing cards. So I would ask my students, what would you do if, depending on their age, I'm working with freshmen right now. What would you do if you saw the boy band BTS at your market? What would you do if you found a Vietnamese dong outside the bank? What would you do if by mistake your teacher gave you a better grade? And I got all types of answers. So what I'm saying is there's just so many things that you can do that are really low tech. Some of you probably already do this, but I'm just giving the ideas to those that haven't thought about it yet. So you're saying, okay, so how can teachers do assessments on their students when they do this type of speaking and talking? How do you create an assessment tool? Well, you can create your own, which takes a lot of work to do a rubric. This is good, this is better, this is excellent. Or you can use a speech generator. Write this down if you'd like to do talk topics. I have an online speech generator and it's called ratespeeches.com. Excellent, excellent. It generates not just assessment, but it gives you all types of topics in all types of categories. It finds speech topics. It creates an evaluator for you, or a rubric. It has persuasive speech topics, current events, and it's great for critical thinking. Speaking of critical thinking, learn how to teach critical thinking. Learn how to help your students think critically. When I teach, this is probably the number one thing that I think can be improved. I think it's lacking a little bit. And sometimes in the USA, we start teaching our students this at a younger age. So, maybe I'm kind of used to it a little bit more, but I work on it very much with my students right now when I teach in Vietnam. Students must be able to problem solve and think critically in the future. When I'm able, I embed critical thinking in most of all my lessons, even if it's just a little bit. I make sure that I have something that students can just think about and not just give a yes or no answer. And so what is critical thinking? It's when a student takes information and they have to think about it, analyze it, come up with a conclusion. The conclusion may not be my conclusion, but it's their conclusion. They need to form and defend their opinions, sometimes with data to back it up, sometimes with no data, just thinking, using their brain. Thinking about thinking, metacognition. Why did I think that way? That's what I like, when students can really think about what they're thinking. Get your students thinking critically. Develop questions that they can't just simply answer yes or no. Promote brainstorming and provide time for students to generate their own questions. Encourage students to think for themselves and not have groupthink. This is another problem that I have when I have new students. There's lots of groupthink. If one student says something, the other one says it, the other one says it, even though they may not agree. Also, students should be making connections. There are many opportunities for students to connect and learn from real life experiences. This is a great blog for critical thinking. If you just Google blog, MIMIO.com, and critical thinking, It has so many questions for critical thinking. It's just excellent. It's excellent. I have used it and make sure that all through the blog, they have little links that you can click on to tell you different things. It's really good. So write this one down, blog.mimio.com. And the reason critical thinking can be low tech and no tech, and I think it's so important, because in the time of today, social media, influences of politics and celebrities and the internet, students have a lot pulling at them. Students all over the world should be able to know fact from fiction. Sometimes it's really hard to tell when, with the social media or, kids are always on social media. Sometimes it's hard to determine what's real and what's not. Students should be able to tell you or listen to both sides of a debate. And I mean, even small children should be able to think critically. If students can talk, they should be able to ask, what do you think about that? Why did you choose that? What do you think other people do? So what do you think people do in the snow? What do you think people do when anything, X? So even small children can use critical thinking skills, and the younger you teach them, the better off they'll be. So this is my personal critical thinking story. I volunteer to host foreign exchange students. They're teenagers, ages 15 to 17 years old. They fly here from various countries. I choose one. They live at my home with my family for a year. They go to my local high school. I live in Ohio, in USA. And when they arrive from other cultures, sometimes they have a difficult time thinking critically, especially my girls. And at first, I didn't understand why. But then I realized that sometimes girls are told what to do way more than boys. And especially girls between, the ages of like 10 and 17, where to study, how to study, sometimes what to study, what school to go to, maybe, possibly, sometimes even who they're going to marry. So slowly, I think girls are changing their critical thinking skills. But I had a situation where one of my foreign exchange students, this is her, she came from Indonesia and she went to my local high school and she was just obsessed with hair. And to me, I was like, what is wrong with this little girl? It's just hair. But remember, she's from Indonesia. She came to my home. She was shocked that I was an American. In her mind, I was going to be a Caucasian, a white European looking mom, but I wasn't. So that was first. And then second was the hair, like her first couple weeks of school. So some of the questions she would ask, and remember, I didn't understand at first. She would say, at high school, how do the girls' hair change so quickly? I was like, huh? Why does their hair look so different every day? How do the girls get it this way? So instead of me just giving her her answers at the dinner table, I told her, I have a task for you, critical thinking. I want you to go to school and I want you to find 10 girls at your new high school and talk to them and ask them those same questions. And again, talk to your host sister, who was my daughter. Now, my daughter had just went off to college, so she really wasn't in the house to ask her these questions, at one time. But she eventually, she found her way, found 10 people and asked a question. And here's what she found out. This is my daughter. Her hair has to be straightened with this appliance right here. We call it a flat iron. I'm sure you may have them in Vietnam, you may use it, but that's what my daughter uses to straighten her hair. But after Black Americans wash our hair, even me, when I wash my hair, one shampoo, this is what I get. This is my daughter's hair after she washes it. My daughter, anybody that has natural Black hair. So the girl would go to school and see hair like this one day and then straight the next. And when I say she was confused, she was confused. It was almost funny. But what it did was it taught her how to seek out answers. Now she knows about Black hair care. She knows what we need to do to straighten it, how we get our big afro. She knows so many things. So when she went back to Indonesia, she was full of confidence, but it all started with hair. And students, sometimes you have to show them. Instead of me telling her, I wanted her to learn for herself. Second example, I started with my project virtually in Vietnam in the beginning of September. When I met in one of my freshman classes, I introduced myself and I showed them my family. And one of the students wrote in the chat, "Teacher, I am so confused." And I was confused that he was confused, but I got it. So all I did was introduce myself. And I created an unexpected critical thinking moment for these students. Because once he said that, the other ones that were too afraid to tell me they were confused were like, "Oh, okay, we get it now." So I introduced myself and I showed them my new family. That's my family. They were confused. They had questions. And sometimes a few of them were not brave enough to ask me in front of everyone, but I got a whole lot of emails once I finished class that night. This is my family. This is my son and my new daughter-in-law. That's me, the cute one over here on the left. So they didn't understand. And what I was explaining to them, my son met the girl in college, been dating for many, many years, and they decided to get married. So as you see, this created a critical thinking moment that I wasn't expecting, but they asked me questions. They had so many questions about so many things, and it was great. So as you see, experience, exposure, and thinking critically taught not just my foreign exchange student, but my Vietnamese students. Now they know about different cultures in the USA. As an African-American, I've taught them so many things. And like I said, sometimes they don't say it in class, but they'll ask me online. They'll ask me in my email. And these are critical transferable skills that these students are going to use throughout their lives. So now I'm going to give you some of my best tips that I use for my virtual teaching. This is open educational resources. If you all don't know what this is, universities in the United States have open resources, textbooks, mostly for university or above, but you can also find all kinds of things, free textbooks you can download, sometimes music. This is one at Emory University. So usually look at open educational resources and it'll give you different universities and you can find them. Great source for textbooks, books, information, scholarly information. If anybody's doing research, any, really good stuff. This is another one. It's printables where you can print free different reading levels, sometimes math too. I really haven't looked at the math because I teach English, but it's called Achieve 3000 Literacy. You can print off, it just has so many things on it. So write that down, Achieve 3000, put the literacy behind it because there's something else, Achieve 3000. Make sure you put Achieve 3000 Literacy. Of course, you all know Google Classroom, but I had to add it because, you know, I think it's improved from what it was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it works very well for me. Nearpod. Nearpod Silver Edition is free, where teachers create interactive presentations. I don't use Nearpod as much as I used to when it first came out, but I did look and check that they still do have a free version. Same with Padlet. It's like an online bulletin board, and you can create up to 3 Padlet boards. I have teacher friends that love Padlet. They use it a lot. You can share links, you can share pictures. So I know many of you know Padlet, but if not, check it out at padlet.com. Socrative. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of Socratic. It is an online tool where teachers can give quizzes, tests, assessments. You do little competitions on it. It's a little bit more academic than like Kahoot and quizzes. It's a little bit more academic. Teachers have to create it themselves, but it's good. And they have a free version where you can have up to 50 students in the room. And usually I use it for assessments, and it corrects it and gives you a grade and gives you a score right there. That's really what I like about it. So once you create your test, it gives you your score for your students and tells you what they got wrong in a more academic way. This is one of my favorites. If any of my co-teachers are in my session, they know I love Write Reader. And here's why. When I have 6 classes of Vietnamese students and 50 students in a class online, if I need to really know a student, or let me look at their face, because sometimes they're not showing on the screen, I use Write Reader. Everybody introduced themselves with a Write Reader book. And Write Reader, it kind of gears toward young children, but I've used it probably 5 times with my university students. And it really works very well. So here's how it works. You have to go on and they create a book of themselves. It could be anything. You can get a topic, but I use it for introduction when I start a new class who I don't know and they don't know me. This is how the inside looks. They create this, they add the images, they can make 4, 5, 10 pages, as many pages as they like. And it's pretty simple, but it gives me a chance to learn who they are. You can make a topic out of it. You can give them anything for writing. And this is one of my classes. Usually they put their pictures on the front. I took the pictures off for privacy issues, but this is how it looks when you look at your class, and then I can click on, you know, they usually put their name on it. I took the names off also, but this is what a classroom looks like. So I have 50 of these on one of my classes, but it gives me a chance to go in and read about, you know, where they live. They live in a rural area. Do they live in the city? It gives me a lot of information about my students while I'm virtual. I love it. They have it's free for up to 60 books, but they have a paid version that's not very expensive at all. And for you to use it outside of the USA, you will have to use this link. I have written them and said you need to get a link that people can use all over the world, but for whatever reason, you have to, and I will, at the end, I will try my best to put this in the chat when we finish at the end, if you don't get a chance to write it all down. Also Flipgrid. Love Flipgrid. It gives students a chance to speak. It's a video and audio for discussion, debate. Students can look at each other. Teachers can allow students to look at each other's videos. You can make a comment. You can make a like. And now what I like about Flipgrid is you can use Flipgrid and not have to show your face. If someone's very shy or they just want to speak and not really put themselves on video. So that's a new feature. Chatterpix. Chatterpix will be used in my class this week. I use it sometimes. It's, again, for students that are really learning to speak English. And even if they're high school or university and you want to try something fun, this is how Chatterpix works. You take a photo. You take a photo of anything. You make a line across where the mouth goes and you record your voice and the mouth moves as you're talking. So it's kind of quirky, it's a little bit fun, but I'm going to try it with my freshman students to see if they can, just to engage them and to get 30 seconds of speaking on a topic. 30 seconds is better than nothing. And you can do more than one. So it's pretty cool. It's cute. Young children will love it, but I use it all the way up to university. Lingo Hut is another. It's a free language program. Usually I use it for practice. I haven't used it this semester, but I like it. It's okay. It has different languages on there just for something extra if you teachers want to give it a try. And one of my favorite reading platforms, it's free. You can get reading passages, pre-made worksheets, is readworks.org. It does reading comprehension, it does assessments. It's free for teachers and students. It's excellent. And here's some of the topics. They change the topics depending on, and remember, this is geared towards the USA. So Halloween, but music. They break it down by grade level up to, I think, grade 12. But I mean, you can use it for many things. They have open-ended questions for each passage. It's just very good for anyone that wants something new to do for reading. So there are many free and inexpensive digital resources. This is by no means all of them, but also remember that teachers, you can incorporate audio, images, video into your lessons. I know sometimes the internet may not be good, but when the internet is good or the internet is, working very good, try one of these or have the student, give it to the student, show them how to use it and let them try it later on. So I'm gonna give you a few more and then we'll do some questions. Make sure you draw connections to real life. That'll also help the boredom of just students staring at a screen. Think outside of your course, get creative, get your students involved and encourage them, because learning is not just from a textbook. Textbooks get old, where you have to keep up with what's happening, the newest technology, the new way of teaching and learning. And remember, these are fast-paced technological students, most of them. So, you also want to make sure that they are engaged. This is my favorite recording app. Again, I use this a lot of times with my upper level university students that are learning English. Make a PowerPoint, and then for me to, instead of me just sitting there listening to their PowerPoint, I have them recorded on Screencast-O-Matic. Now, the only thing with Screencast-O-Matic, free recording is up to 15 minutes. I have a paid account because usually my students or myself, we use more than 15 minutes. But if you can have them do a PowerPoint for 15 minutes, or you do your class for 15 minutes, have them look at it, just another piece of technology. Edpuzzle, again, very good. I love Edpuzzle. It's very close to TED Ed, and I'll show you that in a minute, where you pick a YouTube, one of these YouTubes. It could be a story, it could be a lesson, expressing this is some grammar, and then you can stop it where you want to stop it and add a question. So imagine YouTube, you stop the YouTube and add a question based on what the student just listened to. So this is more a listening skill for those that are learning English, but it's really good, and it's called Edpuzzle. Also, you can give more opportunities to collaborate with classmates. Don't forget your Zoom breakout rooms. You can use them for many things. And remember, you have to tell the students what the breakout room is for. Speaking English, what the project is. The thing about it is you can join as the teacher. You can go to each classroom and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Because we're not face-to-face, it's very difficult to do group work, but the breakout room is perfect. Authentic opportunities and materials, social media, visitors to your classroom. I had a class the other day, and my friend speaks a dialect of English called Patois, and I had her come in my class and speak Patois to the class. It took 5 minutes, and they were like, whoa, it was so interesting. So use technology. It's going to be more and more the norm. Even after the pandemic is long gone, I think that we are going to be able to have in-person classes and online versions of teaching and learning. Now, I'm going to go through these fast because I added these because they have nothing to do with English, but they're free apps. So maybe some of you may teach English in another class. I don't know, but this is a great physical education app. It's called Go Noodle, gonoodle.com. It's for smaller kids, middle school, high kids. I really wouldn't use it for university students, but if you teach high school, middle school, primary, online, it's called Go Noodle. Excellent. Another one is called teambodyproject.com. This is more for university, if that's what you need to do. I don't know how long you all have class with your students, but just in case that you're a phys ed teacher, or you know of a phys ed teacher, teambodyproject.com is a little bit for high school and older teens and adults. And these are a few great apps. If I have any art teachers in my audience, a free app for Adobe Illustrator Draw. This is probably ages 11. It's for older students, and it uses layers on top to draw a photo. You take a photo, you put layers on top, and then it helps them draw. Very cool, very fun, and it's free. And they have a great tutorial of this on YouTube on how to use it. Also, Pick Collage. Pick Collage helps students take pictures. They always take pictures, and it'll help with a collage. And remember, you can do an art project and then have them talk about it online. Appadvice.com. Again, it teaches students how to draw. It's a drawing app. Very good. It adds grids on top, and then you figure out how to draw, and just something fun in it to do if you like art or you incorporate art into your classes. Pop art, pop art adds light and color, and they have a pop art app. It's for pop art classes, and My friend uses it all the time, talks about it, loves it, so I added it. I haven't used it personally, but if you like art and your students like art, or you have an artist, maybe this will be for them. Harp Art Light. Couple tools for virtual music teachers. One's called Tune Train. And this is basically free sheet music and musical notes. It's for maybe smaller children to middle school, maybe. It's called tunetrain.com. And I think this you would have to download it from the Apple Store. They might have an Android version right now, but I know they definitely have it at the Apple Store. And your Google Drive. Google Drive is great for putting music on there, singing songs. Remember, singing songs is also speaking English. It might be in a melody, but it's words are words, and pronunciation is pronunciation. So remember that Google Drive is great for music sharing. And Google Jamboard, which is a digital whiteboard. I don't use Google Jamboard a lot. I used to when I first started online teaching. So if any of you like this digital whiteboard, is Google Jamboard is an app for you to use. And I'm getting to the end. Storyline Online. StorylineOnline.net. Make sure you put .net. It's American celebrities read stories, children's stories. And, you know, again, listening skills. So there's a whole hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. So if you go to StorylineOnline.net, there's lots of stories. I mean, even for freshman university students, have them listen to a story and then telling you what it's about. Make a video of what it's about, send it to Google Classroom, do a Flipgrid, and there you go, an activity. TED Ed, very similar to Edpuzzle. However, what I like about TED Ed is short videos. Like there was one about clean water, and it had questions, and it's just a lesson, and it was excellent. So ed.ted.com, even if you don't want to use it, look at it. It's very good. It has many things: English, art, grammar, climate, all types of things on there. And they're short lessons for students. ed.ted.com. And it's based on TED Talks. You guys know TED Talks, where someone stands on the stage, a professional or a scholar, and gives a talk. That's what it is. And I put Canva on here because Canva can use for many things. For PowerPoints, for teachers to use, for art, for illustrations. It's a great site. And I only use their free version, and I use it a lot for a lot of things. This is not free, but it's very good. This is grammar. Grammar, they have flashcards, it's reading, and it's called ESL Library. It's not too, it's a little pricey, but it's for the year, and I use it almost every day in my USA classes. I have not tried it in my Vietnamese class yet, but great platform, but it's not free. This is one of my favorites, and if any of my teachers are on here, this is Name of Wheels. So Name of Wheels, do you see this wheel? You can use it for rewards, participation. You can use it for debate, topics for speaking and research. Students can create their own wheel. And at the end of my presentation, I'm going to show you how to use Name of Wheels. So these are a few ways to connect with your student: Name of Wheels, Flipgrid, Chatterpix, Heads Up, breakout rooms, Google Meets, virtual meetings with students, all types of ways that you can connect with your students, low tech, no tech, and free. So all of these low tech tutorials you can find on YouTube. So if you wrote something down, look at all of them. Look at the shortest video on how to use it and see if anything is worth that you want to check out for your class. Finally, your teacher's attitude affects student motivation. So a motivated student learns from a variety of sources. They have grit and determination and critical thinking. And, you know, they have a sense of meaningfulness. That's what learning in school is all about. It's not just studying and taking tests. It's also about learning, motivation, meeting people. But a teacher's motivation counts too. So practice your use of self. Be creative and think out of the box. You're attending this, the fact that you're on this webinar and attending the workshop and conferences, you're developing yourself. Talk to other teachers. If you have any problems, you can feel free to email me. I'm going to give you my information. Make sure the students that see that you love to teach them. And be flexible and adaptable. And teach with care and loving. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you all that. I'm preaching to the choir, but I just think that teachers also need motivation. And I hope that this gave you a lot of things to put in your teacher toolbox. So if you want to find me, I am a new blogger. When I say new, like 90 days new that my blog has been up, and you can find me at passportamore.com. Passport Amore. Amore means I love you in Spanish. So I love my passport. So I have a new travel blog. I'm still working on it, but it's up. And you can also find me on Facebook at Carla Bailey 45. And thank you for coming, everyone. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. That came from Gandhi. Thank you, everyone. And I am ready for a few questions. But before I get to my questions, let me stop sharing my screen. And I want to show you all how to use word of names. Hold on, let me show you here. Let me share my screen for 1 second. Can you see my screen? No?
Not yet.
Okay, hold on. How about now?
Yes, it's on.
Okay, so this is the wheel of names. So on here, I just put names. You could put students' names, you can put questions, you could put topics, you can put debates, anything. So I made this up, put a little thing in the middle. You can change the color, you can do many things. And then I just click my mouse and it'll pick a topic. I pick a student. And that's it. And the student talks for 1 minute about the topic. That's it. And that's it. So I have many different wheels. It's free and I like it because sometimes students are pretty quiet. So sometimes I put students' names on here. So instead of me picking students, the wheel picks the student. So that's Wheel of Names, free, and you can do many things with it. Again, they have many tutorials on YouTube, and I hope you guys learned something a little bit anyway.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms.
Very
Carla.
good.
It's wonderful. And we have only a minute left, but we have a question from the audience. So I just pop it quickly so that you can answer this, okay? And the question is how you address assessment, grading student performance.
So for assessments, I use a lot of times online. I'll use Socrative. I think it's the most academic. Sometimes I use quizzes. Sometimes I'll just give my own test, especially right now I'm teaching speaking. So speaking, I'm focusing on pronunciation.
All right, and this is the question from the audience, Ms. Ruth Alido. All right, so I think that maybe due to the limited time, we cannot answer other questions right now.
Okay.
However, if any in the audience have any further questions, feel free to contact Ms. Carla Bailey. She gave you the information, right? The Facebook and how her
Right.
blog in order to contact her.
And I'll put my email. Let me put my email in the chat really fast.
Yeah, it's wonderful.